Did you know that over 100,000 temporary visa holders could be forced to leave Australia in 2025 due to new immigration rules? Yes, even those who've been living, working, or studying here for years might suddenly find themselves no longer eligible to stay. The government has ruled out a wave of strict changes, quietly rewriting the rules around work visas, student permits, and permanent residency pathways. Some professions are now banned. Some students can't renew their visas, and one small mistake could get you banned from reapplying for years. Whether you're on a skilled visa, a student visa, or just hoping to call Australia home, these changes might affect you more than you think. So stay with us, because we're breaking down the 10 most shocking immigration rules for 2025 and revealing who may have to leave before it's too late.
Number 1. Popular skilled jobs are no longer eligible.
Imagine spending years studying or working in Australia only to find out your profession has been removed from the skilled occupation list. That's exactly what's happening in 2025, and it's causing panic for thousands of migrants. The Australian government has slashed several occupations from the eligibility list used for General Skilled Migration, GSM. Jobs that were once in high demand, like chefs, motor mechanics, marketing specialists, and aged care workers, are now being phased out or limited to regional programs only. This means that even highly experienced professionals may no longer be able to apply for permanent residency through traditional pathways like the subclass 189 or 190 visas. So, what's behind this sudden shift? Officials argue that the changes aim to target genuine skill shortages, but critics say it's leaving hardworking migrants in limbo, especially those who've already invested time, money, and effort into making Australia their home. Take this real-world example. A chef with 6 years of local experience on a temporary skill shortage visa might now find zero options to transition to permanent residency, just because their job no longer fits the government's priorities. The worst part? Many visa holders weren't informed in advance. They continued their studies or jobs only to find the door to PR quietly slammed shut. So, what can you do? If your occupation has been removed or flagged, explore regional sponsorships, check for state nomination options, or consult a migration agent to look for alternative pathways before your current visa expires. This is just one rule, and as you'll see next, the others are even shocking.
Number 2. Employer-sponsored visas are under tight scrutiny.
If you're on an employer-sponsored visa, like the subclass 482, temporary skill shortage visa, brace yourself, because 2025 has brought in tougher rules and tighter oversight than ever before. Previously, getting sponsorship from an approved employer was seen as one of the most secure pathways to working and eventually settling in Australia. But that safety net is quickly disappearing. The government has now placed heavy compliance requirements on employers, making it much harder to get and maintain sponsorship. Here's what's changed. Employers must now prove there's a long-term, genuine need for the position, not just a short-term gap. They're also required to show detailed evidence that they tried to hire an Australian citizen or permanent resident first. On top of that, sponsored workers are being monitored more closely, with random audits and checks becoming more common. Why the shift? Officials are cracking down on visa misuse and fake job offers that have, in the past, been used to exploit the system. But in doing so, genuine applicants are getting caught in the crossfire, facing visa delays, renewals denied, or even early cancellations. Let's say you're an IT professional working in Sydney under a 482 visa. If your employer downsizes or fails to meet new reporting obligations, your visa could be in jeopardy, even if you've done nothing wrong. If you're on an employer-sponsored visa, make sure your employer is fully compliant with the latest sponsorship obligations. If possible, look into transitioning to permanent residency via the 186 visa or seeking state nomination, which might offer more stability. And this is just the beginning. In the next rule, you'll see how even temporary visa holders with no sponsorship ties are at serious risk in 2025.
Number 3. Temporary visas now come with strict time limits.
If you've been in Australia on a temporary visa, thinking you could keep extending it year after year, 2025 just brought that to a screeching halt. The government has now enforced strict time limits on a wide range of temporary visa subclasses, including the once flexible subclass 408, pandemic event visa, and even working holiday visas. These changes are aimed at ending visa hopping, where people stay in Australia for extended periods without transitioning to permanent residency or leaving the country. Under the new rules, the 408 visa is being completely phased out, meaning tens of thousands who relied on it during and after COVID-19 must now find a new pathway or leave. Working holidaymakers can no longer roll over into student or training visas without strong justification. Visitor visas used for bridging or re-entry are being closely monitored for signs of backdoor stays. This crackdown is especially painful for those who've built a life in Australia over several years, working, studying, and contributing to the economy, only to be told their time is up. Here's a real example. A hospitality worker who stayed in Australia for nearly 4 years using a combination of 408 and student visas is now facing a hard deadline to exit the country despite having ongoing employment. So, what can you do? Now is the time to stop relying on short-term extensions. Explore long-term visa options like skilled migration, regional nomination, or employer sponsorship. If none apply, start planning an exit strategy early. Don't wait for an expiration notice. And if you think this rule is tough, wait until you hear what happens if you fail the new English requirements. Your opinion matters. What do you think about these new rules? Drop a comment. We read every single one. We put hours of research and effort into these videos to keep you informed, so please support us with a like and hit subscribe. It's just one click, but it means everything to us.
Number 4. Tougher English language requirements could block your visa.
In 2025, English proficiency isn't just important, it's now a visa deal breaker. The Australian government has raised the bar on English language requirements across multiple visa streams, and the impact is already being felt by thousands of applicants. Previously, a modest IELTS score of 5.5 or 6.0 was enough to qualify for many visas, especially student and skilled worker categories. But under the new rules, those same scores may now get your visa refused outright. Here's what's changed. Student visa applicants now need a minimum IELTS score of 6.0 overall with no band below 5.5. Skilled migration applicants are expected to achieve at least 7.0 or higher in speaking and writing for certain occupations. Post-study work visas now require proof of competent English even if you studied in Australia. The government claims this is to ensure that migrants can integrate into Australian society and perform effectively in the workplace. But many argue that this sudden change is disproportionately affecting international students and skilled migrants from non-English speaking countries. Let's break it down. Imagine you're a nursing graduate from overseas. You studied in Australia, completed all your placements, and now you're applying for PR. But you score 6.5 in writing. Under the new rules, you could be rejected despite your qualifications. What you can do: start preparing for your English test early. Use official IELTS or PTE preparation tools, consider enrolling in language coaching, and don't underestimate how tough the test can be. Failing the test doesn't just delay your plans. In some cases, it can shut the door completely. And speaking of barriers, the next rule is hitting international students right where it hurts: their wallets.
Number 5. Higher financial proof now required for international students.
Studying in Australia has always been a dream for many, but in 2025, that dream now comes with a much higher price tag. One of the most controversial new rules is the increase in financial proof required for student visa applicants. In the past, International students needed to show enough money to cover basic tuition fees and living costs. But now, the Australian government has significantly raised the financial threshold, citing the need to ensure students can genuinely support themselves without relying on work or welfare. Here's what's new. Applicants must show proof of funds covering 12 months of tuition, living expenses, travel costs, and in some cases, health insurance, all up front. The minimum required bank balance has increased by thousands of dollars, depending on your location and course. Funds must be in your account for at least 3 months before applying, no last-minute deposits. The reason? Authorities are cracking down on visa mills and students using study visas as a backdoor into the job market, but genuine students are paying the price. Real-world impact. A student planning to study business in Sydney may now need to show over $30,000 AUD in savings even if they have a part-time job lined up. What you can do. Prepare your finances well in advance. Avoid borrowing large sums right before applying. Instead, keep consistent savings, and if you're sponsored, ensure all documentation is clear and verifiable. Failing to meet these new financial standards can lead to outright visa refusal, no second chances. And if you think this is tough, wait until you hear about the crackdown on fake enrollments and visa misuse, coming up next.
Number 6. Crackdown on fake enrollments and visa misuse.
In 2025, the Australian government is taking a zero-tolerance approach to fake enrollments, ghost colleges, and visa system abuse. If you're not studying where you said you would, or if your enrollment doesn't check out, you could face immediate visa cancellation and even a 5-year re-entry ban. Authorities have launched a nationwide effort to weed out non-genuine students and shut down dodgy education providers. These so-called ghost colleges enroll students on paper only, allowing them to stay in Australia without attending classes, often just to work full-time. Here's what's happening now. The government is conducting real-time audits of student attendance and enrollment records. Students who switch providers frequently or have long gaps in study are being flagged for investigation. Education agents linked to fraudulent applications are also being blacklisted. Real-life consequences. An international student who changed institutions twice in 1 year and missed over 50% of classes was recently deported within days of being flagged, with no option to appeal. The message is clear. If you're not genuinely studying, your visa is now at serious risk. What you can do? Always enroll in CRI/COS registered institutions. Maintain consistent attendance and keep records of assessments and coursework. If you need to switch providers, follow the official process and keep documentation. Even genuine students can get caught up in this if they don't follow the rules. A small mistake or misunderstanding could now result in life-changing consequences. And speaking of consequences, the next rule affects thousands of international graduates, and their future in Australia is suddenly very uncertain.
Number 7. International graduates face fewer options after graduation.
If you're an international student hoping to stay in Australia after finishing your degree, 2025 may be the toughest year yet. The once promising post-study work visa pathway has now become narrower, shorter, and harder to access. Previously, international graduates could apply for a temporary graduate visa, subclass 485, and stay in Australia for 2 to 4 years, depending on their qualification. But under the new rules, the duration has been cut down, and the list of eligible degrees has shrunk significantly. Here's what's changed. Graduates with degrees not aligned to skill shortages, such as business, hospitality, or arts, may no longer qualify for post-study work rights. Visa durations have been reduced to just 1.5 or 2 years for most fields. The new system prioritizes graduates in sectors like engineering, health, and IT. This means that students who invested tens of thousands of dollars in education may now find themselves with no viable pathway to stay in the country after graduation. Real example. A student who completed a master's in international business in Melbourne, a course previously eligible for a 2-year stay, may now be offered only 1 year, with no PR pathway unless they switch to a priority field or move to a regional area. What you can do? Review the updated skilled occupation list before choosing your course. Consider studying in regional universities, which may still offer extended stays and additional points for PR. Explore state or territory nominations based on local demand. The takeaway? In 2025, a degree alone is no longer enough. You need a clear plan, or you could be forced to leave shortly after graduation. Next, we'll look at why the government is pushing migrants away from major cities and what that means for you.
Number 8. Big cities are out. Regional migration gets priority.
If your dream is to live in Sydney, Melbourne, or Brisbane, you may need to rethink your plans. In 2025, the Australian government has officially shifted its focus away from major cities and is now pushing migrants toward regional areas. Why the sudden shift? The government says it's trying to ease congestion, lower housing pressure, and ensure that regional communities benefit from skilled migration. As a result, more visa points, faster processing times, and special incentives are now being offered to migrants who choose to live, work, or study in designated regional zones. Here's what's changed. Applicants for general skilled migration get bonus points for studying or working in a regional area. Certain visas, like the 491 Skilled Work Regional Visa, are being prioritized over urban-based applications. Employers in regional areas are being given greater flexibility to sponsor skilled workers, even for occupations no longer accepted in major cities. Real-life impact? An IT graduate struggling to find sponsorship in Melbourne found faster visa approval and a clearer PR pathway by relocating to Adelaide, where their skills were in high local demand. What you can do? Look into regional study options before enrolling. Check the designated regional area list to see which locations qualify for added benefits. Talk to a migration agent about state-specific nomination programs tied to regional development. While it may seem like a compromise, regional migration might be your best and fastest way to stay in Australia long-term. And speaking of risks, the next rule reveals how even a minor visa mistake could now get you banned from reapplying for years.
Number 9. One visa refusal could get you banned for 3 years. In 2025, the Australian immigration system has no tolerance for mistakes. Even one small error in your application could now lead to a devastating 3-year re-entry ban. That's right. Under the updated regulations, visa refusals and cancellations, even due to minor issues like missing documents, inaccurate information, or failure to meet changing criteria, can now trigger an automatic exclusion period. During this time, you may be barred from applying for another visa to Australia. What's even more alarming? Many applicants don't even realize they've made a mistake until it's too late, and by then, there's no appeal. Here's what can trigger the ban. Submitting incomplete or incorrect information, applying for the wrong visa type, breaching visa conditions like working more hours than allowed, being found non-genuine in your intention to study, work, or visit. Real-life example. A student applied for a graduate visa with outdated bank statements and received a refusal. They unknowingly triggered a 3-year ban and now cannot return to Australia, even to visit family. What you can do? Triple-check every part of your application. Stay updated on the latest immigration rules. They change often. Work with a licensed migration agent to avoid costly errors. Never ignore a Department of Home Affairs request. Missing even one deadline can result in refusal. In 2025, carelessness comes at a high cost. Don't gamble with your future. A single mistake can close the door to Australia for years. And if that sounds harsh, wait until you hear how the government is using character tests to deport people over even minor offenses.
Number 10. Expanded character test means even minor offenses can lead to deportation.
In 2025, the Australian government has toughened its stance on character requirements, and the results are already being felt across the country. The character test, once used mainly for serious criminal cases, is now being enforced more aggressively, even for minor offenses or questionable behavior. That means you don't need to be charged with a serious crime to have your visa canceled. Something as small as a verbal altercation, a traffic-related incident, or even social media activity deemed inappropriate can now trigger an investigation and, in some cases, immediate deportation. Here's how the new rules work. Visa holders can have their visas canceled or refused if deemed not of good character, even without a criminal conviction. Immigration officials now have broader discretionary powers to act if they believe someone poses a risk to the community. People with pending charges or past warnings may be flagged for visa review even if the issue was minor or resolved. Real example. A temporary visa holder involved in a public argument at a train station, no charges laid, was flagged and later had his visa canceled under Section 501 based on conduct alone. What you can do: stay informed and cautious in all public and online interactions. Avoid any legal trouble, no matter how minor it seems. If you receive any notice from immigration regarding your character, seek legal advice immediately. In 2025, your behavior both online and offline matters more than ever. Even if you've done everything right on paper, one wrong move could send you packing. Let's wrap up with a summary of these 10 critical rules and what you should do right now to protect your future in Australia.
Australia's new immigration rules for 2025 have changed the game completely. From stricter skilled occupation lists, tighter visa timeframes, and increased English and financial requirements, to surprise deportations over character concerns, these updates are already affecting thousands of students, workers, and families across the country. Many who once felt safe and secure on temporary visas are now facing uncertain futures, and in some cases, being forced to leave the country with little warning. This isn't just policy, it's people's lives. So whether you're already in Australia or planning to move soon, these rules are too important to ignore. Your next steps could determine whether you stay, leave, or risk losing everything you've worked for. But it's not all doom and gloom. There are still solutions. And with the right plan, you can navigate these changes and succeed. Solutions. Book a visa health check with a registered migration agent to review your current visa status, eligibility, and future risks. Don't wait until your visa is near expiry. Act early. Explore regional pathways. With regional migration being prioritized, consider relocating to regional areas for study, work, or sponsorship. These areas offer more points, faster visa processing, and often longer stay options. Upgrade skills and language. Strengthen your visa eligibility by improving your English scores and ensuring your qualifications match in-demand occupations. Enroll in approved training or bridging programs if necessary. Be 100% compliant. Stick to all visa conditions, work hours, study requirements, and character obligations. Even small breaches can now have huge consequences. Plan long-term. Stop relying on short-term extensions. Start building a clear migration strategy, whether that's skilled migration, employer sponsorship, or partner visas.